Ways always acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Turtle Island and pays respect to their elders, past and present. We want to take this time to acknowledge traditional owners and ancestors of these lands. We reside on here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We're surrounded by 19 pueblos. And wherever you're beaming in from, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and ancestors of the lands you are at. So we could all be here today. And this evening, we got a special guest. But first, we wanted to say that Indigenous Ways is dedicated to bridging cultural exchange with people globally, and this has been working. And this evening, we have a very special guest, Tommy Orange. He comes from Cheyenne and Arapaho tribe. We have a very interesting evening. Tommy contacted us at noon today and said that he needed to do a pre-recording an hour before. So that is what we did. We had to think quick and fast on our feet in order to make this happen. So this evening, an hour ago, literally, Tommy shared an interview, moderated, and did some of his readings. So Tommy Orange is an overnight success. He's a graduate student from the Institute of American Indian Arts, and he has since then was thrust into the world of touring, the world of international hotels and audiences, and he took his family on the road with him. And then coronavirus happened, and that brought him back to his home in California, where he currently resides. As we're speaking right now, he is in another Zoom commitment. So let's give it up for Tommy Orange. Here it goes. Awesome, Tommy. Thank you so much. So, how did you get into writing?
It was kind of an unconventional path. I didn't grow up reading or writing like like I hear a lot of writers do. I was an athlete more so, and wasn't really encouraged to go to school, or wasn't asked about college, or we had a lot going on in the family, and just not getting in trouble was that's all I had to do. And so I got into roller hockey, played on a national level. I was sponsored by a company by the time I was 16, and there was a professional team in Oakland at the time. So it didn't seem crazy to think that I could play professional roller hockey, as stupid as it sounds now, because the sport is non-existent at this point. Anyway, none of that panned out into any kind of career. And then I became a musician. This is before even thinking about writing. And I went to school for sound engineering. I got my bachelor's in science in the sound arts, and got really into like composition and sound design. And at the end of that program, it didn't really seem like there were any clear career paths or jobs that were easily seeable. And I ended up getting a job at a used bookstore and was reading, you know, religion and philosophy, and sort of more out of meaning in my early 20s. I hadn't even thought about fiction. I don't think I'd even finished I hadn't finished a novel by then. And I sort of, I had to move the fiction section from one part of the bookstore to another part of the bookstore. And we didn't get very much business. It was a huge bookstore, like they don't exist anymore, like all used. But the Amazon was just about to wipe out. This would have been 2005 or the end of 2004. And I fell in love with fiction at that time period. And pretty quickly after falling in love with the form itself, specifically of the novel, I started going at writing and thinking about writing, and then realized how far behind I was. And for the next, decade, up until getting into the MFA at IAIA, just on my own while having a full-time job and starting a family, just always writing as much as I could and reading as much as I could. So it was a very private, sort of secret discipline But I knew that I loved it as soon as I found it. I loved it immediately and went at it as hard as I could.
That's awesome. I noticed when I was reading There, when I was in the MFA program, also, it was one of my major pieces to write about and analyzed some of the metaphors that you were able to employ with the interiority of your thinking, like, say, writing on transit in the Bay Area and just what was going on interior. We were able to associate that with graffiti on the walls and making it into like almost a tribal cultural thing that you would think on a reservation in ceremony, but I got that ceremony feeling internally of you being in the city writing on transit. How did that was that practice or is that just the way your brain functions?
Well, I definitely wanted to bring the native, um, the native point of view, the worldview, to the urban landscape in the setting, to Oakland. I grew up. My dad is Cheyenne. He's a fluent speaker, and he was a roadman in Native American church. And he didn't raise us that way. I did end up having experience in ceremony after that. Um, what I wanted to do was have the urban characters relate to landscape and to environment and to home and to where they belonged in the same way as you might read it, and as a native person relates to the land historically, and the way native people are so often um, depicted is sort of nature or reservation or historical. And I wanted to make it feel, to have that native point of view, but have it feel like a contemporary piece and an urban piece. And that was, a big part of what I wanted to do in the novel.
That's amazing, Tommy. I really got that feeling when I read that and
Um,
I felt
the the
I felt the
native point of
anguish of
view,
the
the worldview,
relocation
very piece.
of the people, but at the same time, I felt the esteem and the pride of going. You know what? This is where we are. Let's do this. Let's do this and let's be this and be a collective in a very individualized kind of concrete city setting. And I was very touched by all of it. So on to the
Thank
next
you.
question. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience as an urban native growing up in the Bay Area?
Sure. Um, So, largely what it meant, because we didn't grow up around a lot of other urban native families. There was one other family that we grew up around, and they were the Browns. And us being the Oranges, and the other Indian family we know are the Browns. I was confused as a kid, like, well, I don't know what the relationship between color and being Indian is. Um, but other than that, we would go to Oklahoma, and we would go to where my dad grew up, and or my grandma would come stay with us. And it felt like it very much was like being native was where my dad came from. And then I was kind of aware of, my mom worked for um, she worked for uh, Office of Indian Education in Oakland. And we had some ties there. But it wasn't until I started working in the Native community in Oakland that I really became aware of the history. It's evident from a picture when I was maybe 10. We went to Alcatraz, and my parents took a picture of me in front of the graffiti, the occupation graffiti. Um, uh, and it would seem that I would have grown up sort of with that knowledge. And I always was, but my dad spoke Cheyenne to us, and we were proud of who we were. But I was more interested when I was 10 in like the gangsters who were in the prison and how they escape it. And I wasn't like steeped in the history of the Bay Area Native history. So when I started working in the community, I did become really steeped in the community and in the history, and spent about 10 years working in the behavioral health department, doing various different things, including digital storytelling work, where I did, a lot of community work and teaching people how to tell their stories and how to turn them into short films. And um, so it was after that, when I went to write, that I had, this internalized experience that was not, necessarily super connected to the Bay Area Native community. And then I had this, full experience of getting to know the community and being embraced by the community and getting to know all the people that made up the community that influenced what went into the work and what I brought to revision in trying to make all the characters feel true to what I'd experienced, what I'd witnessed.
Wow, that sounds like an amazing learning curve for you, just in terms of seeing all these different perspectives and ways of being, and then doing a collective and being artful with purpose about it. That's very beautiful. Thank you for that. So, would you mind reading us a piece of a work of your choice?
Sure, I'll read. If I'm going to read two different things, I'll read a little bit from there, and this is just it speaks to the urban uh, Indian perspective.
Beautiful.
Plenty of us are urban now, if not because we live in cities, then because we live on the internet, inside the high rise of multiple browser windows. They used to call us sidewalk Indians, called us cityfied, superficial, inauthentic, cultureless refugees, apples. An apple is red on the outside and white on the inside. But what we are is what our ancestors did, how they survived. We are the memories we don't remember, which live in us, which we feel, which make us sing and dance and pray the way we do. Feelings from memories that flare and bloom unexpectedly in our lives, like blood through a blanket from a wound made by a bullet fired by a man shooting us in the back for our hair, for our heads, for a bounty, or just to get rid of us. When they first came for us with their bullets, we didn't stop moving, even though the bullets moved twice as fast as the sound of our screams. And even when their heat and speed broke our skin, shattered our bones, skulls, pierced our hearts, we kept on even when we saw the bullets send our bodies flailing through the air like flags, like the many flags and buildings that went up in place of everything we knew this land to be before. The bullets were premonitions, ghosts from dreams of a hard, fast future. Urbanity. Urban Indians were the generation born in the city. We've been moving for a long time, but the land moves with you like memory. An urban Indian belongs to the city, and cities belong to the earth. Everything here is formed in relation to every other living and non-living thing from the earth, all our relations. The process that brings anything to its current form, chemical, synthetic, technological, or otherwise, doesn't make the product not a product of the living earth. Buildings, freeways, cars, are these not of the earth? Were they shipped in from Mars, the moon? Is it because they're processed, manufactured, or that we handle them? Are we so different? Were we at one time not something else entirely? Homo sapiens, single-celled organisms, space dust, unidentifiable pre-bang quantum theory? Cities form in the same way as galaxies. Urban Indians feel at home walking in the shadow of a downtown building. We came to know the downtown Oakland skyline better than we did any sacred mountain range, the redwoods in the Oakland hills better than any other deep wild forest. We know the sound of the freeway better than we do rivers, the howl of distant trains better than wolf howls. We know the smell of gas and freshly wet concrete and burned rubber better than we do the smell of cedar or sage or even fry bread, which isn't traditional. Like reservations aren't traditional, but nothing is original. Everything comes from something that came before, which was once nothing. Everything is new and doomed. We ride buses, trains, and cars across, over, and under concrete plains. Being Indian has never been about returning to the land. The land is everywhere or nowhere.
Wow. Okay, everybody, let's take a moment here to just take some deep breaths. Let some of that sink in. Something about your writing, it just makes me want to cry. I
Okay.
I read your book and cried. So when I have those kinds of emotions come up in me, something's working. Something's working. And to me, tears are beautiful. Tears are beautiful because tears are recognition of something, like something or nothing, like you said in the end right there. So thank you very much for that, Tommy. I'm just, wow. You were meant to be a writer. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
So, how are you and your family dealing with your status as a role model and a successful overnight writer? I mean, hold on, I didn't say that right. How is you and your family dealing with your success as overnight success and relatively new career in writing?
So, it took its toll, and we kind of had to, um, I don't know if we did it or if it was a combination of recognizing that it was taking its toll, the traveling and the being gone, and that amount of exposure. I certainly don't want to sound like I'm complaining about success and having a career, because that's obviously a blessing to be able to write for a living, and to get paid to do events and that kind of thing. But they push you really hard because they want to sell the book, and that's just part of it being an industry. um, so I took my family on the book tour. So for the 30 days we were together on the road, and um, they realized how grueling it is to be living out of a suitcase and in and out of a hotel every night, a different hotel in a different city. um, but it was really good to have them. It was really grounding to have them there for that. And then we went to Europe for 7 weeks, because the book's been translated into like 27 different languages now. But there were a couple that translated faster, so we were able to go to a couple of those events. Um, and so that was like the whirlwind part of it that was really like fun and exciting and new. And then the cascade of events to continue to promote the book and to do speaking events, because that's a source of income. That's part of the career part. You get a certain amount for a book, and then whether it sells or not, there's a few. I mean, you can teach, or you can, if you're lucky enough to get speaking events, that's your source of income. So um, that over a 2-year period, doing it all the time was really taxing, and not necessarily healthy. I think I was out of balance. And so, we started to recognize that. And then the pandemic happened, and being home, we've been able to see a lot more clearly that it was out of balance. And so if everything clears up and um, I'm back out there again, it's definitely going to be in a more conscious way this time around.
Beautiful. And that goes to my next question, that is a spontaneous question about. So, you wrote this book, There, which is obviously a compilation of stories over a period of time that finally got organized with some beautiful mentors at the Institute of American Indian Arts, Pam Houston, and some of the other amazing, notable mentors there that were able to talk to you and guide you and stuff like that. So once you finish that book and you did the tour stuff, people are hungry, hungry, hungry for more. Like I read There 2 or 3 times, and it's like all annotated up. And I gave it away, and then I bought another one. In fact, I just lent it, my latest version, out to my sister's colleague who's going to be joining us tonight to hear this. So he's like reading it in a couple of days, and he's going to give it back to me. And then I'm lending it to another Navajo who's going to read it. So that's kind of the book world for Indians. We just kind of pass books around and give them back and pass them around. So, anyways, my question is, how do you keep that momentum going? Like, say, if you're really inspired and you're like writing and you're like, ooh, where's a piece of napkin? Honey, can I use your lipstick? I don't have a pen. I got to write this line. I got a beautiful metaphor that's coming through. I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. You catch it. You write it down. And then you're like, sit down to your computer. It's like, man, flatline. Ooh, no inspiration. Damn, burnt out. I've got to write this. I got a deadline. How do you deal with that?
Well, I usually am not without my phone, which means I don't have to borrow any lipstick. I have the Notes app on my phone that I'm constantly going to. So I run as part of my practice, as part of my writing process, is long distance running. And I'll often get ideas while I'm running, so I'll have to write those down on the fly. And a lot of times those are some of the deeper solutions I'm trying to work out. For novels, it's a little bit, there's questions that are harder to answer, like right at the page. And so I found that running does that. But you don't know how to control or how to wield inspiration, or like I would like to call it like being convinced enough to do the writing. I have to keep convincing myself that the work is worth it, that I'm the one who should be doing it. And it's a day-to-day thing. Like I am constantly having self-doubt, crippling self-doubt, and can't stand to look at the page to make revision, to make it better, or to write new work. You have to have a certain amount of belief in yourself to get the words out. And you can't control that. If you could, somebody would have bottled it and sold it by now. If there was some secret recipe to be able to keep working and be inspired and write. And the only way I know how to do it is to find as many ways to work as you can. So I just, I do a ton of research. If I'm not feeling inspired enough to write, I have a historical piece on what I'm working on now on my next book. I sold it right before the pandemic. And it's actually a sequel to There that's kind of turned into a prequel and a sequel at the same time. I will drive in the car and have a robot app read to me. I'll change a POV from third person to first person, or from past to present, or vice versa. So a lot of like tedious things that don't require inspiration. Finding ways to keep working even when you don't feel inspired to write is one of the ways that, to combat the crippling self-doubt and the things that stop you from wanting to write.
Wow.
So, but yeah, it's a lot. Writing's not always very fun.
It's a discipline for sure. And
Yeah, it's a discipline.
yeah, I have a lot of respect for the disciplined writers out there, because I've always had stories in my head and it's just hard to get them on a piece of paper. So it's like, dang, there's a great story, but man, got to get a beginning, a middle, and an end from start to finish. So that's always the challenge. So, do you have like any tips for any up and coming Indigenous writers that have all these great stories, whether they're from the big city or if they're from the reservation and they want to get into this world? What would you tell them? Like top three things.
Well, you just mentioned the word discipline, and I think sometimes writing is seen as you're either inspired or you aren't. And with something like being like a musician or a painter, or certain things that the discipline is built into the way we think about them. Like this person obviously put in the hours, and that's how they're able to be, a master at this. Writing, we tend to think of it like they were inspired or they're not inspired, or they're like they have writer's block, or they're, and I think the discipline piece is not built in the same way with even with like athletics. So I was an athletic and a musician before I was a writer, and so the discipline was built into those practices. And so I very much brought that to writing, knowing that you put in the hours, you find ways to put in the hours, and then you see the difference. So I think discipline, building and finding your way to discipline yourself to continue to practice, is a good piece of advice, I think, for any writer, whether you're new or old to it. If I think that's a way to avoid writer's block, is finding a way to keep working. That, I guess, if that's number one. Number two, finding a publication that with work that you like in it. So for 7 years, I was trying to get into the Zoetrope Short Fiction Contest. It's just an annual contest. I didn't even get a subscription to I didn't follow my own advice. I didn't even get a subscription to the magazine. I just picked one that was revered, and there was some language. And if you won, or if you placed, or had an honorable mention, they would send your work to an agent. So this was before IAIA, when I was just like submitting to one place a year. I had that sort of laser focus to like, this is where I'm going to get published, and I'm going to work at it every year. I'm going to submit one story. And, I never won the contest, but I did get an honorable mention. It did not lead to getting a call from an agent, but it felt like winning when I got the honorable mention. So, figuring out the work you like, and then keep submitting to that place, and keep trying, and center your deadlines around whenever their submission times are. If they have a contest, then sort of center it all around that, and just sort of laser focus on that. I guess number three, an MFA program is a really good idea, and not to sound like an IAIA commercial, but it's a really good MFA program. Amazing mentors. I went there, you went there. Santee Fraser's the director there now. He's awesome. Um, and he's doing a wonderful job there. Um, I think it also, being in an MFA program, not only do you get the structure of and working with um, amazing faculty, you you can get into a rhythm. You have accountability to people, and you have deadlines built in over a 2-year period, and you're working toward finishing a book. That's what the program's built around. Um, so you can very much keep that momentum coming out of the program and keep those structures in place by building relationships, so that you're well on your way to, getting to the place where you want to start submitting your book wherever you can. You can make connections to faculty who might be able to help you, get it submitted to agencies or different publishers. It's a good place to make those kinds of connections. A future, one of your future peers in the program might end up published, and they might be a connection for you. Not to make it sound like it's all about connections, but there is something to, like, having people that who have access to this publishing house. So that's an MFA program is one route to publication. That's pretty tried and true. It's not a sure thing in any way, but I think specifically for a Native writer, it's such a great program for Native people, and there's not really anything else like it in the country.
So, do you feel like that 2-year journey you did at IA, and I know you've come back as a mentor and been worked with students, do you feel like you have a family for life with them? Like you're connected to
Yeah,
IA?
definitely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, me and Therese very much came out of the program. Therese Mayat.
Yep.
We sold we came out, and like we're sort of accountable to each other, and we both sold our books within 2 weeks of each other, and our books got published the same year, and we rode that wave together. And I think
Wow.
we're really close now, and that was a relationship that I made while I was there.
Beautiful.
But
Uh,
with a lot of people from there, it very much feels that way.
yeah. Awesome. Well, can you read us another piece?
Sure.
Awesome.
How are
Thanks.
we on? How are we on time?
We're down to about give us about 5 minutes. Is that cool? Five. Can you
I'm
read
a,
about 5 minutes?
oh, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
This is from the New York Times Magazine did a fiction issue, um, and it was based around the Decameron, which is I forget the author's name. Wrote it around the time of the plague. Um, so I was deep in the middle of trying to finish a draft of my next book, and wrote this in a couple weeks. It's a pretty short story. But it's very much like was of the time I was writing in earlier in the pandemic, when it was when everyone was getting used to what it all meant. This come out July. It came out in July, but I was probably writing it in May, April and May 2020. This is called The Team. You'd been staring at a wall in your office for what amount of time you weren't sure. Time slipped that way lately, as if behind a curtain, then back out again as something else. Here as an internet hole, there as a walk on your street you insisted on calling a hike with your wife and son. Here as a book your eyes look at that you don't comprehend, there as crippling depression. Here as observing circling turkey vultures, there as your ever imminent anxiety. Here as a failed Zoom call, there as a homeschooling shift with your son. Here as April, May already gone. There as the obsession over the body count, the nameless numbers rising on endless graphics of animated maps. Time was not on your side or anyone's. It was dreaming its waste with you, as you, hidden and loud as the sun behind a cloud. You were thinking of when you were last in public. This wasn't counting the masked and panicked weekly grocery store runs or the post office box scramble, you with your precariously stacked boxes of the unessential, keeping as much distance as you could from anyone you saw, especially after hearing a podcast that introduced you to the disgusting idea of mouth rain. You don't even make eye contact with anyone anymore. So afraid are you of the spread. The last mass gathering public type thing you'd done was running your first half marathon. There's your medal in your office, hung like a deer head. A half marathon doesn't sound like a whole lot, it just being the half, but it was a big deal to you to run and run for 13 miles without stopping. When you first started training, you actually paid money to join a running team that gathered together and pumped you up about how grueling it all was. You did chants and listened to your team leaders rant about their race times and the superior foods and energy sources they carried in plastic sacks around their waists. You hated the team training, so you quit and started to think of your whole body and health and routine and running songs playlist as the team. You got up early to run, and you went on more than just one run a day sometimes. You kept to the mileage you planned, and you kept to the diet prescribed by the app you downloaded to train. The app then was also part of the team. The team kept its promises to itself. The team was your heart keeping healthy and your lungs keeping clear and your determination remaining determined to do this thing you decided you needed to do for reasons you don't even remember. Running is surely as old as legs, and you'd been doing it yourself for quite a while, mostly to stave off the ever encroaching pounds that come with age. But running to race was new, running for the distance, for a time, to cross the finish line. This was a strange kind of obligation you'd taken on, a mantle, a goal with a finish line. Running before modern times was serious business. It was running away or toward something with urgency, hunting, being hunted, or delivering a critical message. The first official marathon happened at the 1896 Olympics and was won by a Greek mailman. The race length was a nod to the ancient Greek legend of a runner who'd been running a message about victory just before collapsing and dying right then and there. There could be countless other examples of ancient running. Surely Indians were running all over American countrysides before Cortez brought Iberian horses to Florida in 1519. And yet you are stuck with the image of the Indian on horseback. And when the image should represent Native people's sheer adaptability, it stands for the static, dead Indian. You've always known this image to reflect an aspect of you that was both true and not true, some kind of Centaurian truth, because your dad is Native American, a Cheyenne Indian, and your mom is white, and both of them were runners, which is why you ever even thought to run in the first place. But regardless of ancient running and family heritage and half truths, there was no way to really know what kinds of running activities humans were up to since the beginning of legs.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I've got to read that again. Our board president sent that to me, and I like reading your stuff over and over because that's how good it is, Tommy. All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much for your time. Finally, I want to just ask you now with us the first year over of the pandemic, COVID-19. Now we're going into our second year with the pandemic, hopefully taking a downward dive and everybody getting vaccinated now. Finally, we're all on that journey. What does thriving in purpose mean for you in this time right now?
I think, always with balance in mind, doing everything that I can, given the blessings that I've had to have this career. So, trying to promote other writers that need help promoting, trying to blurb books, trying to do, um, things toward charity, trying to finish the next book, while also being here with my family and maintaining that sort of balance. I think sustained belief in the work is its own challenge. And if I can do that and be healthy, if I can finish the next book, that would be thriving for me. And, you know, I'm very happy to be involved in a novel. I think that is, big part of my purpose here. So to me, if I can do the work and keep a healthy balance, then that's the most I can ask for, I think.
Well, gosh, Tommy, thank you so much. And certainly you are given back by giving us your time here at Indigenous Ways. We sure appreciate it. We'd love to have you back another time as we continue to move on this journey forward. So I want to thank our beautiful interpreters this evening, Cress and Zoel. And most of all, thank you, Tommy Orange. We will be in touch.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for
Take care
having
of
me.
yourself. Be well.
You too.
Wow, thank you so much, Tommy Orange. What great medicine. So thank you for sharing this space and time with us. Just before we get all our extraordinary Zoomsters to come in if you wish to, we're just going to do a commercial break. And that is what's happening next Wednesday at the Indigenous Ways Wisdom Circle. We've got the extraordinary Kate Groves who will bless us next week. She will be calling in from Holland, where she resides. So it'll be like 2 in the morning. But she's going to be happy to share the space. She's in her doctorate thesis at the moment with 2 extraordinary kids, husband and family, celebrating our wonderful Women History Month that we have. So we're really looking forward to Kate blessing us in this wisdom circle. And if you're new, welcome. Thank you so much for blessing us, whether you're in the Zoom or our countless social media end. We started the Indigenous Ways virtual event 1st of April and have over 80 presenters that you can also tap into on our website at IndigenousWays.org. There you can go and see all the archives of the amazing words, just like Tommy, that was shared. We've got artists, spiritual advisors, musicians, just this wonderful collection of Native American, Indigenous, deaf and hard of hearing, LGBTQIA presenters who are there. So please, if you haven't, check it out and also share with your friends. You'll see zapping along the bottom here all our social media. If you're in live with us at this moment, thank you so much for your essence and presence and blessing us. Please like or subscribe to those pages. We really appreciate that. And since starting this on the 1st of April 2020, the whole idea of this was to keep everyone connected through these extraordinary times that we've been doing in our electronic circles. So we're so grateful because all of our presentations have had ASL interpreters, grateful for those interpreters, and also all of our events have been free. So no one is left behind. And that is made possible because of our sponsors. Our sponsors are the Native American Advice Fund from the Santa Fe Community Foundation, New Mexico Arts, and WestAF. So we're grateful for our sponsors at this moment. And our virtual events, we have Wednesdays, which we have the Wisdom Circle, where we are now. We also have the 3rd Saturday of each month at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, the concert series. And if you want to find out who is in and for the month of March, again, check out IndigenousWays.org and you can click on those artists that we have. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to our weekly newsletter that goes out of who's coming up, who's been, and please share all of this with your wonderful peeps online. We're really, really grateful for that. And also we want to give a shout out to our Indigenous Ways board who have made all of this possible. Phenomenal team. We've also got a number of them in on the platform at the moment. So thank you. And also, this would not be possible without the individual donors who have really believed in us and given to keep us all here supporting everyone that is in at this moment. So a lot of you are aware that we through this time of COVID, the pandemic, global pandemic, where Tash is from and her family, Black Mountain in Arizona. We have been doing relief runs. Now, we've only been doing relief runs because of all of you making it all possible. So, they're saying it takes a child to raise a village. Well, that's what we've been really blessed by all of you to make these runs happen. So on the 18th and the 19th of March, we will be doing our 9th run. And we've extended that to the McKinley County here in New Mexico, where we reside. And that is specifically for the deaf and hard of hearing community members that are out there and in the surrounding areas. Our run that we did in February, when we saw Dennis, who's in the picture beside, and also Yvonne, shared with us that they had missed out on any of the emergency and relief runs simply because of communication and also through lack of transport. So we want to change that with the help of all of you, and that is happening. So if you do want to help out in that, or our run up to Black Mountain, you can donate to our, we've got PayPal or Venmo. You can also go to our website, IndigenousWays.org, donate. And if you're not into any of those electronics, which we really get, you can also send a post to our postal address, and supporting the cause, whether that be our relief runs or the virtual events, in doing that. So now that said, it's that awesome time. If you're in Zoom and you're okay, because this is being recorded, you want to come in and share some words about your readings with Tommy Orange, or some comments that you want to make because of what you might have been touched in. It's your time to turn on your camera. And if you're in any of our social media sites while people are doing that, please make a comment in the social media. And while people are kind of figuring out where their cameras are on our Zoom end, I just want to share Hilda Ritchie. Yeah, Hilda, who's out in Wisconsin, and she's on our social media. She says, "Thank you for sharing. Blessings to all in making this event possible." We also have in our social media end Mary Sue Elder Gilbert, who says, "Blessings to a beautiful soul whose voice reaches inside and calms a troubling mind." Thank you. So yeah, keep those comments coming in our social media end. And if you have a comment, or maybe you've been moved by the words tonight that Tommy has shared, or if you've been really fortunate to read that extraordinary international bestseller, and as he said, has been translated into many languages.
27.
If you've been very deeply touched by that, you can share it in this space. So,
all right. And we're very grateful that Tommy was able to jump in and do a pre-recording an hour before the show because he had to jump into another thing. He had a conflict of schedule. He told us at noon today, and we're like, what are we going to do? So fortunately with technology, this is what's happening. So this is an intimate circle for us tonight. So let's go ahead and start with Michelle. Would you like to say some words?
I just think it's really exciting to, there's too many.
No. Go ahead, Michelle Mormel. Go ahead.
Yeah, our Michigan sister.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see this young, powerful, bright guy that is just doing his thing, and he's out there and he's working it. It's exciting to see. That's all.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. And Amber, how you doing?
Well, I wanted to say that the thing that I really appreciated about the book There was the dignity that each character was given. You know, the respect that this young man showed to each of the characters, and by doing that to each of us who related to various characters. Um, no one no one was disrespected. You know, people fucked up, excuse me, people screwed up, but they didn't become less human or less loving or less deserving of love in all of that. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing to convey within a novel. And the time that I read the first part that he read here was it touched me because it was how I have perceived things, that, you know, every piece of plastic comes from the earth and it's all sacred. And there is nothing that does not deserve our respect. So thank you.
Oh, beautiful, Amber.
Thank you for that, Amber. I'm just going to go over to our social media and also some in our chat box and Zoom and share that. Homer Hubble, our beautiful brother in Albuquerque, thank you for joining us. He says, Najoniet, meaning thank you. Beautiful. Thank you.
We love you, Homer.
We love you, Homer. And then we've got Willa Charlotte, who says, thank you so much, Tommy, Elena, and Tash. Thanks, Willa, for joining us. We've also got Candy, who says, wonderful questions and reflections. And then David Gomez. Do you want me to say this, David, or do you want to share it and share some other thoughts you may have? Oh, you're on mute. I didn't know if you were being shy or I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Yo, David.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a comment in the box, but I thought I actually share a lot with Mr. Orange. I found out as time went on, in that I also am a child of relocation. My parents met at the Oakland Indian Center. My dad from Taos Pueblo and my mom from Rehoboth, and they were married out there, and we moved to San Francisco, and where I was born, actually. So then I guess when I was about 5, my dad decided he didn't want to raise his kids in a city. But I often think that, what if my dad hadn't made that decision? And my life would have been very much like the people in There. My dad was a welder. My mom was an electronics assembler. And, I would have lived that sort of working class life in Oakland until who knows what. But I think by moving back to New Mexico, back to the reservation, we were all able to achieve higher levels of what we could have, what we ultimately ended up doing. My dad became a senior councilman, the governor of the Pueblo.
Wow.
I ended up going to law school, and through that working with Michelle and meeting you guys. So, I think that's the most important thing that ever happened to me, that we moved back here. And like Mr. Orange, I was also nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. So it's interesting how we have these interesting parallels, like a generation or two apart.
Right on, David. That is so cool. I didn't know that about you. Thank you for sharing. That's so beautiful. And David put there reminded me of a native pulp fiction in the connection between the large cast of characters headed to its finale. So with that, we'd like to move to Karina Coffee. It's so awesome to see you here, Karina. Would you like to share some words? We need you to unmute.
Well, it's been a while since I read it. Hi, Elena. Hi, Tosh.
Hey,
Karina,
Karita.
great to see you.
The only thing that I can say is that I appreciate the authenticity of the way he describes Oakland and urban lifestyle. And I mean, you could not write that unless you lived there. And so it was so descriptive that I felt like I kind of knew the city briefly, I mean, it was that authentic.
Yeah.
And very strong characters. It was sad. You kind of know the ending. I mean, you sort of anticipate what's going to happen.
Oh,
And
gosh.
I put off reading, the ending for a while. I had to take a break. The minute he printed, that 3D printing of the gun, it's like, okay, yeah, what's going to happen, that this is going to get violent. Violence will come into this. But I just have to say that I think it was the authenticity of it, the whole urban setting that I liked, because I don't have that experience at all.
Beautiful, Karita. Thank you very much for that. Alivisis Matakfa. I don't know how to say your name. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me here. This is my first wisdom circle I'm attending, so being able to see Tommy Orange, someone that I've looked up to before attending IIA, it's kind of like an honor, So thank you guys for having me here. I think one thing that I'm grateful to experience is having someone who is not only Indigenous, but also living in an urban setting. I think a lot of us can relate to a fact that a lot of Indigenous people aren't really raised on reservations or in their Indigenous settings. And I wasn't raised on an Indigenous setting or a lifestyle. And, some of the events that happen in there are relatable, it's true, it's a true reality that a lot of us face. And was happy that he was able to shed light on that and, make a book about it. And it's cool. I wish I had more words to express my feelings, but I really liked it and I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you so much for your words, and so glad you're a part of the IAIA family. That's awesome.
And thanks so much for finding us and taking the time to share with us this evening. So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
All right, we got enough time for two more. We got two more people we'd like to acknowledge this evening. Let's start with Missy.
Hi, y'all. Yeah, this was really a lot of fun to be a part of, and thank you, Tasha and Elena, for emceeing this and making it so fabulously inspirational and interesting. And I love the questions you asked too, and just I think it really got Tommy Orange thinking about his intentions and his motivations and where his inspiration came from, and even his family, how that affected his writing. So I thought that was really beautiful. And I have not read the book yet. It's on my reading list, and very soon to be reading list, because I just got it from the person that Tosh lent it to, David. Now he's passing it on to me, and then I will pass it back to you, and you can pass it on to somebody else. And,
Indian style.
Yeah, totally. So we'll just keep passing it around. And in the meantime, though, my daughter read it, and she went to Dartmouth College, and she was doing the Native American program, and they actually had them do a series of writing and analyzing that book. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, because he's very new in the up and coming, literary world. And I think he wrote that book 2 or 3 years ago. And I just to see how it just exploded, not just in Indian country, but had such an inspiration on people all over. And I just found that really amazing that he's had that kind of influence, that they're actually teaching it at Ivy League schools now. So that's pretty cool. And to hear that he's traveling all over the world, and they translate it to 27 languages, that's phenomenal. He's just like a overnight success with this book. And he got it from the amazing inspiration that he got from IAIA, which has a fabulous writing program. And so my sister was able to get her and so she's an awesome writer. And so it just really good to see how it's influencing our Native people and their creativity and putting it out there into the world. So I'm really excited about it. Thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Missy.
Miss.
All right. Well, I love you. And last word from Candy Jones. What's up, Candy?
Well, I have to say, excuse me, hello, y'all. I was so pleasantly surprised and so not underwhelmed. I was overwhelmed by the languaging, the poetry. I can see your interviewing was phenomenal, and he is a musician. He has a good ear, right? And he's disciplined as an athlete. And so it's like the infusion of all of these ingredients made this phenomenal recipe. I could listen to him forever. And I haven't read the book. I will now. It's fantastic. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Candy. And we
But
just want
I'd like to say one thing about Elavisi. Elavisi, right before Tommy went off, we said, Tommy, if it wasn't for IAIA and the word going out to the campus about you coming on, we would reschedule. But we might get one student in tonight. But actually, we got 3. We got Karina Coffee, who's alumni and retired, and we had Andrea Otero, who are the educators, and a student. So that's so awesome. I just wanted to throw that in. I said, because of you, we got to do it, man. So thanks for joining us, Elavisi.
Thank you. And Natalie says,
Love you,
fourth
Candy.
student.
Love
Natalie
you, Candy.
is also here.
Yeah,
Thank
me
you,
too. I'm an
Natalie,
alumni.
for being there, for piping up with that as well. So we're grateful for the Institute of American Indian Arts, all the amazing people who have gone before us all, and also for future generations, for the students that have joined us, whether that be live through our social media because you weren't able to get on, or in live through Zoom. We really appreciate you all being on. If you're watching the recording of this, thank you for your time and essence and being with us. And want to take this moment, because we're almost at the top of the hour, to thank our interpreters, Kaylee and also Chris Esiando, for making space and making this accessible for all. I want to thank each and every one of you for your precious time, whether you're here live, watching the recording, watching this out through our social media. We really appreciate you being here. Please be sure to share this link to your friends. This will be also available in the next 48 hours on our website, IndigenousWays.org, and all the other over 80 Native American, Indigenous, LGBTQIA, deaf and hard of hearing presenters that we've been so blessed to have through this doorway.
And we want to thank you, Joyce, for joining us. We are at the top of the hour, and thank you for being with us.
And so with that, we'll look forward to seeing you all Wednesday next week for Kate Groves, who is beaming in from
Holland.
Thank you. I
in
really
the wee
enjoyed
hours.
it. I'm on the East Coast, and I have read a lot of the books that she has recommended, and I'm learning so much about what people think. And I love Tommy's book. They're there. I just felt he was an excellent writer. And the gal that spoke about the his meeting all the requirements requirements. I felt that she did a great job on that. That's what he does. He makes it all work. So thank you very much. And I'm
Oh,
proud
Nice.
of things that happen like that.
Oh, thank you,
Thank you
Joyce,
so
for
much,
finding
Joyce.
us and having the last words. We'll look forward to seeing you all Wednesday, the 10th, same time, same channel.
Thank you, Kaylee.
And
Thank you,
then
Kaylee.
let's give it up one more time. Or this time for Tommy Orange.
Tommy Orange. Thank you, ASL interpreters. We'll see you guys. We'll see you. We'll see you next week.
Woo-hoo! Everyone be good, be kind, and make lots of trouble. Love you all. We'll see you next week.